I want to kick off by asking you about what's really become a theme for the last several weeks, in particular for the entire news industry, and that, of course, is the U.S. midterm elections.
Sure, yes.
And what we've heard from the president, what we've heard from former President Obama, there's been a tight race so far. What's your take on how this is going to play out in terms of the markets?
Sure, I think we're going to get a conventional wisdom outcome. The Republicans will lose the House by about 30 seats on net. They'll retain the Senate. We'll have divided government, and the 2020 elections will start next week.
In terms of what's happening, in terms of we've got wage growth, we've got unemployment has come down to historic lows, but there's a lot of conversation about whether all of this volatility in the markets, I mean, is this a sugar high? Do you think it's something that's actually able to last?
Sure, Haley. Well, we're coming off another sugar high called QE, so we're transitioning from monetary accommodation to fiscal accommodation, which will roll off in the next 18 months or so. But the U.S. economy is doing extraordinarily well. Unemployment's near a 50-year low, so you can't quibble with that.
Hi, Tim. It's Nancy here in Singapore. Great to see you again. When you talk about this sugar high, hi there. Good to see you. As Hadley just put it, I mean, what if we get a surprise in these midterms? What if we get even more Republican gains than the market is currently anticipating? At that point, should investors really start to worry about the implications of a growing fiscal deficit? Or are you already worried?
Well, I'm already worried. I've been preaching this for a long time now. We're on an unsustainable fiscal trajectory. We're going to run trillion-dollar deficits for the next 10 years and probably beyond. So far, the bond market has kind of yawned and shrugged it off. But eventually, markets will pay attention, especially if there's more spending and more tax cuts built on top of this.
Can the U.S. government afford the additional tax cuts that President Trump has flagged?
Well, as I said, the bond market doesn't seem to care right now, but when it does, it usually reacts with a nonlinear response. So I think there are limitations. We're really $1.2 trillion in issuance in 2019. That's a tremendous increase from just 2 years ago. And given that we're at the top of the cycle, I think it's a pretty harrowing fiscal position.
And Tim, I want to get your take on this, given the fact that you are a former Undersecretary of the Treasury, your understanding of fiscal policy, and the fact that you've worked with international governments. Is the Trump doctrine working? Because we said the economy is doing well, and certainly it seems as if he's made progress, obviously, with Mexico. He's made progress with Canada. He's trying to make progress with Iran, and potentially he could be very soon making progress with China.
Yeah, he certainly has a number of accomplishments, without question. The economy is roaring. It's the best it's been in several decades, so you have to give him credit. I disagree on trade. I think the tone and tenor makes it much more difficult to get a serious trade deal with China. I think this is going to be a protracted, nasty affair that's going to be with us for a long time. But he did certainly get a redo of the North America Free Trade Agreement. There are negotiations with Japan, with Europe. So we'll see. But on fiscal policy, we certainly have seen a big hit to the economy, a real supportive pulse.
So a mixed picture.
It's a mixed picture. I think there are opportunities on trade, but it's not clear what they want from China.
I want to ask you specifically to Iran, because we've talked a lot about what's going to happen to that country and that economy in the days to come. Certainly the Europeans have been at the forefront of trying to find some way to keep them within the international financial system. But in terms of those SWIFT transfers, we know that that's just not going to work. What's next?
Well, I think U.S. officials were pretty clear yesterday. They're going to do everything they can to keep Iran out of the financial system, and I think they're going to use the extraterritorial conditions in place. I think Iran's going to go through a very tough time. Our own forecasts are a serious contraction next year and the year after. I think it's a real challenge for Iran.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.